The passage of time may dull memories, but it cannot erase the pain and heartache caused by unsolved crimes. These cold cases are a haunting reminder of the victims who were taken too soon, leaving behind grieving families desperate for answers. Despite the tireless efforts of law enforcement, these cases remain unsolved, leaving us all wondering who could have committed such heinous acts. But now, it's time to shine a light on these lesser-known cases, to bring them back into the public eye and to ask for your help. Join us as we delve into the details of each case, piecing together the clues and uncovering the shocking truths that have remained hidden for far too long. Case number 1 of this video is the incident at Dyatlov Pass. 9 Russian hikers died between February 1st and February 2nd, 1959 in a remote region of the Ural Mountains under eerie circumstances. Questions about what actually happened persist despite numerous attempts at explanation over time. The hikers were pals from the neighboring Ural Polytechnic Institute, who were all seasoned outdoor enthusiasts in their 20s and 30s. They traveled into a distant region of the Urals under the leadership of Igor Alexeyevich Dyatlov, after whom the region was named, and camped at the base of a mountain the local Manzi people called Kholat Zyakol. Something happened that night that forced the group to run into a blinding snowfall with exceptionally low temperatures between -13 and -22 degrees Fahrenheit, and tear open their tent from the inside. They were all improperly attired. Some wore nothing but long underwear and several lacked shoes. They moved to a nearby tree line and made an effort to climb a tree so they could start a fire. The team lost 3 members to severe physical trauma while the other 6 perished from hypothermia. One of the hikers who passed away from trauma had a cracked skull, another had chest fractures like those from a severe vehicle accident, and a third passed away from internal bleeding brought on by chest trauma. None of the patients had any puncture wounds, and there was no soft tissue injury either. The absence of physical wounds on the victims and the tracks in the snow suggested that the Manzi were not responsible for their deaths. One victim's tongue was also removed, while 2 of the victims were missing their eyes. Extremely radioactive clothing was found on 2 victims. Many of the victims were discovered wrapped in other hikers' clothing. The corpses were described as having white hair and orange-colored complexion by friends and relatives during the mourning ceremony. According to Lev Ivanov, the principal investigator of the occurrence in 1959, a different party of hikers who were approximately 30 miles south of Dyatlov's group reported seeing brilliant orange spheres in the north sky on the evening of February 1st. Wild theories about the crime were not helped by the original Soviet inquiry. Officials were unable to come to a suitable conclusion, so they claimed that the group had perished as a result of a compelling natural force. Some of the case's horrific features may be reasonably explained. The victims were missing their tongue and eyeballs, right? Most likely as a result of wild creatures scavenging. The white hair and orange-colored skin, most likely brought on by exposure to the weather. The hikers swapped their clothes with one another. Others may have stripped the corpses for added warmth if some group members died of cold first. There have been several efforts over the years to provide an explanation for Dyatlov's group's demise. Military participation such as parachute mines and infrasound weapons and natural phenomena such as avalanches and katabatic winds have all been suggested as possible causes, such as UFOs, cryptid attacks. Then there are the tales of those who were directly involved in the case, which have stoked conspiracy theories and suspicion about paranormal reasons. The Dyatlov Pass town's previous Communist Party leader said in the 1990s that there had allegedly been UFO sightings in the vicinity around the time of the killings. Yuri Kuntsevich, who as a child witnessed the hiker's burial, said recently in an interview for an Atlantic Story that the group had been killed after being forced by a Western intelligence operative to take pictures of a nearby Soviet missile launch. When the case was reviewed in 2019, Russian detectives arrived to the conclusion that the hikers were trapped in an avalanche, tore open their tent to flee, and then made their way to the neighboring tree line. They tried to start a fire and climb a tree to find their campsite, but found themselves ill-prepared in a frigid snowfall. As the others tried to create a shoddy, improvised shelter out of tree branches, snow and rock, many members of the group perished from the cold. The other 3 hikers received devastating injuries when the shelters collapsed due to the severe weather. However, it still doesn't account for some of the case's most dramatic evidence. The victims' clothes were radioactive for what reason? And what were the weird orange lights that the other party of hikers had seen in the night sky? Next, we'll talk about the boy in a box. A Laseli college student first observed the boy in the box on February 23, 1957, Among the foliage, he saw a box. The student spotted the boy's head and assumed it was a toy and continued on his way. On February 25th, he went back to the area after learning that a young woman from New Jersey was missing, discovered the corpse, and called 911. According to the Associated Press, when the police arrived on the site, they discovered a kid's corpse inside a JCPenney box that had formerly held a bassinet. The youngster was believed to be between the ages of 4 and 6. Investigators found him to be emaciated and battered to death. He was nude and covered in a flannel blanket. Elmer Palmer, the first law enforcement official on the scene, told the Philadelphia Inquirer in 2007 that it's something you don't forget. This one was the one that everyone found bothersome. The hunt to find the boy in the box then started. Detectives followed hundreds of leads over the following 6 decades in an effort to find the identity of the boy in the box. Then they began with the young man himself. Investigation of his corpse found that his sandy hair had recently and ruthlessly been chopped. According to WFTV9, there were still some hair clumps on his body, which prompted some to speculate that his murderer may have sought to hide his identity. His feet and right hand were pruny, indicating that he had been in the water, and there were scars on his ankle, foot, and crotch that seemed to be surgical, according to WFTV9. But the boy's identity remained a mystery despite these cues, a face reconstruction, and hundreds of thousands of flyers that were sent across Pennsylvania. According to the Associated Press, authorities followed a number of clues, including the possibility that he was a refugee from Hungary, a kidnapping victim from 1955, or perhaps linked to local carnival employees. Over time, some leads seemed to be superior to others. 2 of the leads that were followed by detectives in their search for the boy in the box seemed to be the most promising. The first occurred in 1960 when Remington Bristow, a member of the medical examiner's office staff, had a conversation with a psychic. Bristow was guided by the psychic to a nearby foster home. According to the Philadelphia Voice, Bristow discovered a bassinet that resembled one sold at JCPenney while visiting an estate auction at the foster home. He proposed the theory that the youngster was the offspring of the owner's stepdaughter and an unmarried woman. Police followed the lead but finally came to the conclusion that it was a dead end. According to the Philadelphia Voice, a lady going by the name M revealed to investigators 40 years later in 2002 that her violent mother had brought the baby from another family in 1954. M stated that he went by the name Jonathan and that her mother had mistreated him both physically and even sexually. M stated that her mother had killed him by beating him after he threw up baked beans one evening. According to Newsweek, the boy's stomach contained baked beans, which suggests that the account M gave sounded plausible. Moreover, M said that her mother attempted to wash the kid after hitting him, which may have contributed to the appearance of his pruny fingers. Yet, in the end, the police were unable to support her allegation. As a result, the years passed and no one managed to find the boy in the box. But all changed in December 2022 when Philadelphia detectives said they could finally identify him. Philadelphia Police Department Commissioner Daniel Outlaw revealed a development in the investigation on December 8, 2022. She identified the deceased child as Joseph Augustus Zarelli. The neighborhood always remembers this child's tale. She added, "His narrative endured forever." In a police press conference, Outlaw and others described how genetic genealogy helped identify Zarelli. When his DNA was entered into genetic databases, it directed investigators to family members on his mother's side. They were able to locate his mother after poring through birth certificates. They also discovered that Zarelli's mother was the parent of 3 more kids. When his corpse was discovered, Joseph Augustus Zarelli was 4 years old. Since the investigators discovered that he was born on January 13th, 1953. Other than that, the investigators remained silent. They added that there are still a lot of unanswered mysteries about Zarelli's life and death. Out of respect for Zarelli's life siblings, the authorities are holding off on disclosing his parents' identities for the time being. Moreover, they declined to make any assumptions about Zarelli's murderer, saying only that we have our suspicions. In order to complete this child's tale, Outlaw stated the public's assistance is still needed in this open murder case. This declaration just ends one chapter and begins a new one in the life of this little youngster. As we come to the end of our exploration of these lesser-known cold cases, we want to thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery as usual. We hope that our investigation has shed some light on these unsolved mysteries and has sparked your interest in bringing attention to these cases. We urge you to share this video and spread awareness of these stories, as you never know who may hold the missing piece of the puzzle. Let's work together to bring justice and closure to the victims and their families. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay curious and stay vigilant.